Welcome back everyone to the My Generation podcast. Today we are going to be talking about poetry with returning podcast guest Emma Cussen. We had her on the show previously for the 7th episode of the My Generation podcast. There we were talking about her film, photography, love and passion. And today we're talking about another one of Emma's hobbies. As I said, it's poetry. We're going to be talking about why she writes, what makes the medium so unique, and where she's been able to share her works. But firstly, let's just welcome back to the show Emma. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm all good, thanks. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for coming back on the show.
That's all right.
We're going through all the different strings to your bow, I guess, today, because we've already talked about film, and now we're into another passion.
Basically know my entire personal life now.
Yeah, and then it will be travel next, because you
yep.
You had your trip to India.
Yeah, I've been a few places since our last podcast. So
I remember we mentioned that way back when. It feels like a lifetime ago, that episode.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
And just to tease a few more things coming up on the show as well, we've got local musicians every single Thursday on the podcast, and we're playing 2 songs from the local band Mashville. From their EP Another Place, we'll be playing 2 of their songs throughout the episode, so stay tuned for that. And we've got local Kent music enthusiast Sammy Bacon. Every week on the show he recommends an album. He has 2 or 3 minutes just to himself, just to recommend you a new album to listen to, so you've always got new music on the horizon. We're going straight back to Emma. Where did your love for poetry first begin?
If we were dialing right back, I started to write in 2016. So, and that was just a suggestion from like a therapist. They were like, oh, maybe you could try and like write your thoughts down. And then it kind of just went from there. Like, every like bad or good thought I've ever had has ended up becoming quite artistic in a way, and then I started expressing feelings on paper or like writing out my phone. I travel a lot, so like travel when I'm on commuting, like I have like nothing to do for like an hour and 40 minutes, so I'm like, oh, I'll write instead. And that's kind of just how it's got into it. So that's how I started out with it in theory. Yeah.
And what was the reason that poetry was the medium that drew you? Because you could have just written them as notes, the thoughts. You could have painted them, done photography. What was it about poetry specifically?
I don't know. I think it was kind of nice to like look at something that I could look back on. And the way we were going about it was that, say if I was having like a really rough week and I was just like, bloody hell, I need to get this all out of me now. There's no one to talk to, so it's just nice to write it down. To me, it was easier to write something down than go talk to someone about it. And then it was quite nice to look back at moments and be like, oh wow, I went through a really hard time. That's something that I got over, and I can do it again and again and again. And then normally it's just rants, and I'd be like, oh, I'm ranting about something like ridiculous. And then I would probably then, where I go from it, I adapt it into a poem, or I put like bits of it into poems and stuff, so it makes the poem that I'm writing personal. And they sort of serve as like a time vault. Like you can go back and look at that, and just all the memories come back and look at how far you've come. Yeah, it's quite. In my idea, some people don't like to reflect, but I do like to reflect because it's good for me in my progression into my future and my present. Like your past is your past; it's going to stay past. You have no control over things that happen, and it's quite nice to like put them into words and be like, actually this is something I can definitely deal with again if I needed to, because I have before.
And that's like quite a personal internal thing that sort of benefits the poetry for you. But on the other front of that, looking towards sort of the outward expression, how do you share your poetry? How do people hear what you do?
Originally the blog that I used to write was I'm not going to swear, but it used to be What Bloody Next. You can imagine what was the name of the... Yeah, that was the name of it. It was a WordPress, but it was actually anonymous.
Okay.
I've archived it now, and then I stopped writing for a bit. But I have a good friend called Tommy, actually, in the Canterbury scene. And we used to work together, and I think I saw him perform once, and I just put one of my pieces up on my photography account, and he was like, actually, that's really good. And then he kind of said, have you thought about like performing? I was like, bloody hell no, I'm absolutely terrified. I think that would be the worst thing ever. And then that was the first thing. So I started performing last September. Few and far between. I've not been able to at the moment lately for reasons. But other than like performing it, I will just post it on my photography account that I have, which I mentioned in my last one. If I'm going to at
A little
myself right
plug,
now.
yeah.
If I'm going to at myself.
What is it?
Here,
Where can people find
it's
you?
Autumn Bones, all one word with 2 S's at the end.
And we'll put the links to that all in the description,
Yeah.
whether you're listening on YouTube or the podcast is
Just
now on SoundCloud.
Just drop myself.
It's all there.
All there.
That's the only reason you showed back up again.
Yeah, I was just like, oh yeah, I have this like blog.
I have an Instagram.
I have an
You
Instagram.
can check it out. It's got photography on it.
Yeah, so I've started revamping that, and I'll share bits on that. I don't really mind how personal I get with it, because it's, in my eyes, like, someone can interpret my work how they want to. I don't go into depth with it. It's very self-explanatory what I was thinking at the time.
But do you keep it quite ambiguous with how you write then?
Yeah, so I'll kind of... Yeah, so a lot of the things that I tend to write will just be like one sentences, and I'm like, oh, that's actually quite nice. But, yeah, there's a few, 1 or 2 little bits and bobs that are like really, really personal, and I'll perform them once and I'll never perform them again because I can't. But something like actually recently I've been writing quite nice things. I've been in quite a nice mindset, so that's been quite good for me, because most of the stuff I write is quite morbid.
Okay.
So when it comes to performing, there'll always be someone that does like a really lovely poem before me. And then I'll go on and I go up to the mic, I'm like, I hope you're all ready to get sad and depressed with me, because I've got some real stuff coming up here.
But people need that variety in poetry, don't they? So because it goes through all the highs and lows, doesn't it, of emotion?
Oh yeah, I'm really good at like just making a joke out of not like actually joking, but like I can make lighthearted of a lot of things. Like like the one that I wrote recently is called Unlikely. And it's a little appreciation poem to all like my friends, and there's a bit of like it's a part of all of them and how they've improved my life in it. I always talk a little bit about it, and the way I introduced it, I was like, yeah, I'm quite a selfish person, which I don't think is a bad thing. But last year I got to borderline, like I was a bit of a douchebag last year with how selfish I was, and it makes everyone laugh. And then I'm like, didn't change though. And then it makes everyone laugh, 'cause you're talking about like resolutions and stuff, and I'm sitting there like, yeah, I didn't change, I just changed my mindset on how I interpreted it, sort of thing.
Oh, so you sort of twisted it into a positive, really.
Yeah, because I don't think it's a bad thing if someone says that they're selfish, in my opinion. So it's quite like, it's a nice way to express if you're a bit confused about something that you feel, and then you can just read it and keep reading it, and then you go, oh, I make sense of that now. So
but that's sort of like selfish in like a self-love kind of way, like putting yourself first, making sure before you help others you make sure you're ready first, kind of thing.
Yeah, you've got to be prepared for a lot of things in life, and some things you're not prepared for and you can't control it. That's not a bad thing, but it's quite nice to just have that reflection side of things. Like I've wrote stuff about one situation, and then I've read it in a completely different mindset, and then it's become a whole new thing. Like there's this one called Magic that I wrote about falling in love with a person. I read it again after like a year of not being with them, and then I was reading, I was like, actually there's a lot of references about myself here, like the sort of person I am. So I kind of switched it and added some new things, so that it was like the poem's now about me falling in love with myself.
It's you clearly always go back and look at your old poetry as well.
Yeah, it's important to me too. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't understand why you do that. It's like, but in my head, it's the way I call it cheap therapy, which makes everyone laugh. But it is.
Yeah, it's interesting why people choose certain mediums, because like I'm a film writer, so when I want to get sort of themes that I want to talk about out, it's usually through scripts. It would have come out by the time you're hearing this. But the audio drama Once Said, which we're actually recording the dialogue for tomorrow, very exciting. So that's all
in the
planned
past.
out. But that's all in the past now, and it's already out on the channel. You can go watch it. Go listen to Once Said. Really good. If we're going to be just plugging things this whole episode.
Yeah, we'll keep dropping everyone in this.
And this description's going to be quite full. So that audio drama talks a lot about isolation. Through kind of a ridiculous scenario, but it was just something I wanted to explore, and so you've specifically jumped on poetry. But I when I'm writing for film, I like to always remember my inspirations, and like if there's a film that's inspired me, or a director or a writer, are there certain poets that stand out to you that have pushed you towards a certain style?
You'll be surprised, actually. Most of what I'd consider poets actually are considered spoken word artists. Not that there's like a massive variation between the two, but a lot of them are actually musicians. So a lot of my inspirations come from lyrical and musical backgrounds. My favourite would be Cameron from Hotel Books. He is a spoken word artist, but he's very cathartic about the way he delivers his poetry. I would love to be on that level. But there's a few that are kind of like borderline poets, but not. I don't know the lead singer, but he is from Lyle Dispute. Like, when you watch him, I've seen him live, and I've seen both of these artists live, and when you watch them live, they're just absolutely insane the way they deliver. They deliver like the hurt, and it's just like, it's really interesting because they've like gotten into this massive like performance, and it's like they're performing to you. I know, like, obviously musicians do perform, but this is like, I can't describe it, you just get involved in it. But yeah, I'd say Cameron from Hotel Books, then there's Lyle Dispute. There's a few other artists. One poet in particular, he's quite well known actually. He wrote a song about OCD, and he's called Neil Horban.
Okay.
Yeah, he wrote a song about falling in love when you have OCD. And I have his book at home, and I was like reading it. I was like, bloody hell, this is amazing. And I don't have OCD, but like, it's weird how you can read someone's work, even though it doesn't relate to you, you can see where it would. And that's quite nice. But yeah, a lot of my inspirations is actually weirdly music. It's not, I don't really know that many poets. I'm really bad, but I don't keep up with it.
I have a couple I want to mention in this, but I want to know from you then, where do you think the line of music ends and poetry begins?
Oh dear God. I don't know. They kind of cross over sometimes. Like, for example, I was asked not recently how I recite my stuff if I'm going to perform it without my phone. I've got quite good memory of hearing things. I can listen to something about 4 times, and then I can have structure to it. And the way I've described it is, the first time I'll read it on my phone out loud, second time I'll try without my phone, third time I'll try and get a bit of movement into it, but the fourth time I've actually decided to pick up a bit of music in my head behind it.
So you've got like a soundtrack to the poem.
Yeah, so I actually, if I wanted to, I would love to, although I'm not a musician. I'm absolutely terrible at everything when it comes to that.
Emma did not just swear, and we did not just have to bleep that out. This bit's staying in though.
Sorry.
We caught
keep
her.
it PG.
This is not live, luckily for you.
Oh, thank God. No, I'm terrible at music, but I have a rough idea of the sort of music I would put behind. And I think it's weird when I've spoke to a lot of my friends that do poetry in the scene. A lot of them have said the same thing. They can imagine a beat behind them and the way they express it. Like, although it's weird, I can't describe it. In my head, they kind of merge.
Yeah.
Like, you could take away the music from some lyrics and you could still imagine the music. The same with someone performing without music that's never had music behind it. You can kind of imagine the music. In my head, that's the way I've gone about a lot of...
Have you ever like working with a musician to put music behind your poetry?
I've spoken to a few people, yeah. Obviously, well, not obviously. I've got a really good friend called Will Newman.
Shout out to Will
Newman. He's famous. I'm joking. He's got Spotify and stuff, and he he records every single day, practices every single day. He's always got new stuff, fresh stuff coming out. He's got massive inspirations. He's got really good vibes about him. Me and him have spoken about it because he's got like a little setup in his room. And luckily, I've been quite lucky in the sense of who I know. A lot of people I know are in the music scene. And that's been quite nice to kind of have these people kind of like always around me. And even then, like when I've performed, I kind of like to think that I've inspired people to go into poetry. For example, Will, he considers himself a musician. He has done poetry as of recently, and his stuff is really deep, and it's like, damn, man, like this is great, but it's still musician. You can imagine he's got that music background, so you can imagine his flow, and he's really good at performing. He takes over the entire stage and he's up there, and it's really nice, like, to have that, because then I watch him and I'll take notes from him, or he'll watch me and he'll be like, damn, that was deep, you've inspired me, and I'm like, cool. Well,
it was interesting what you said about like him having a setup in his room, how much people do of this art form just at home. Like you sort of, it sounds like you prepare your poetry just at home, do it on your phone. He can make his music from home. It's crazy how in the modern world. People, all the great musicians are sort of coming out of from just...
yeah, like, you just keep going. Like, I feel like if you've got the strive, you're gonna bloody do it. And you're gonna, like, most people that I know that are musicians do have some sort of, like, setup in their room or recording, or just have something constantly on them so that they can keep going, sort of thing.
Yeah, so I heard that, Billie Eilish,
Yeah.
her first album with her brother produced it and did the music for it.
Mm-hmm.
They did that whole album just in his bedroom, and
Yeah.
she performed all the songs, like, sat on his bedside. And there's certain things about, like, musicians who have made so much music but not all released. Like, one of my favourite artists is someone called Alex G, and he's got more unreleased music than he has released music.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's all stuff he's made in his room. He refuses to go professional with it, even though he's starting to get a proper following and he's selling out shows. He just isn't expanding quite deliberately.
It just shows, though, some people are just modest about, like, they just actually, like, not necessarily I'm saying that he does, but, like, it sounds like he just enjoys making music. He doesn't need the fan base from it. He would just do it regardless. And it's kind of nice to see people just be that sort of, like, down to earth about a creative side. And that's, like, what you kind of want to keep doing, especially in the poetry scene. Like, we're all quite small, but we're all quite close. Everyone, like, is always, like, whenever I go out, like, it's weird, I can walk into a room and just so many people are like, hi, how you doing? And I'm like, that's a really, really good, like, sense of community.
It's nice that Kent has a poetry community that's
sweet.
blooming. Like,
yeah, it's insane.
You might not know it's even a thing listening to this, but now it is. Now you know.
It'd probably be bigger by then. Like, the amount of people that, I'm not being that person, but, like, the amount of people that have started writing because I do. It's not because I've forced it, definitely not rammed it down their throat. But a lot of people have wrote poetry because they see that what it does for me. They've seen me perform. They're like, actually, damn, this is actually quite fun.
Yeah.
Like, there's just all positive vibes about it.
And where do you perform your poetry?
Mostly it will be at Bramley's.
Which is in Canterbury.
I've not performed outside of Canterbury yet.
Coming soon,
you'll find out.
Tour dates are on Autumn Bones.
Yeah, I do regular updates, but I've been really, like, off the grid of that sort of thing. I'm not really telling people because I keep not going to events. Just things come up and then I just can't go. So
but it's a hobby at the minute, isn't it? So
yeah, like, I'm still enjoying writing regardless of not being able to necessarily perform it. Although I have, like, really bad nerves of it. So, like, immediately after I perform, I feel really, really down, and I just don't want to be around anyone. I'm like, I feel really exposed right now.
Well, it takes a lot of energy to share something so personal. And how do you prepare then yourself for going up on stage?
Oh, I don't talk to anyone. I just sit there sweating out. My palms would be sweaty. When I'm on the stage, you'll just hear me, like, trembling, and I'll just be like, like, just struggling, and you can hear it in my voice. But it's weird. I'm actually I prefer performing to bigger crowds because I can kind of just get lost in everyone.
Yeah, you just look across the sea of eyes, but when maybe it's a smaller group, it's more personal.
Yeah, because you can actually, like, you kind of pinpoint one person. You go, you look like a nice person. I'm just going to stare you out through this entire poem, and I'm actually performing this just to you. And it's like, but yeah, it's weird because I think of how I will perform it. And then I go on stage, and then one of my friends will record it, and then I see that's definitely not how I expected it to go. But it's still deliverable. Like, but in the same sense, I'm like, I could have done better than that.
But you're learning every time you do it.
Oh yeah, like, some poems I'm not going to be, like, overly excited about because I'm like, they're quite morbid. But the ones that I've done recently are actually quite fun. They're exciting. I can be a bit of a performer with them as well. I can kind of play with them a little bit when I'm on stage, which is quite nice. But I've got, like, one or two, like, massive tongue twisters, and they're like, I could not perform them live just because they just don't roll. I can't roll them off the tongue that well.
Do you know the poet Vladimir Nabokov?
No, I don't. Should I look that up?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll write it down.
He made a book. He wrote a poetry book called Pale Fire, which it's basically the whole first half of the book is just a poem. It's a continuous poem.
Oh, damn.
That is a novel. And the poem's written from the perspective of a character, so it's not written from the perspective of the writer.
That's insane.
And the character has passed away, and the second half of the book is someone that knew that character analysing the poem to try and sort of work out his life. And sort of the poem itself is so difficult to deconstruct. Every paragraph is beautifully written, but it's not an easy poem to read. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever read that I can't understand. And that second half of the book I'm still working through to sort of work out what it all means.
That's cool.
But so what you say about like tongue twisters, not that I really perform poetry, but performing Pale Fire would be quite the feat.
Yeah, like I read a lot of Old English, so like Great Gatsby, that is a tongue twister just to read. It's not even like, sometimes it can be a bit poetic because he was a bit over the top about a lot of things, but I wouldn't wish it upon anyone to perform stuff like that live. Unless you're like a professional.
Yeah, unless you're ready.
Yeah, unless you're ready. Yeah, a lot of my poems I'm not ready to perform. Like, I will only post on my Instagram the ones I have. Just because some I'm like, the world shouldn't hear about these before until I've actually like spoke aloud.
Well, yeah, they'll be ready at different points. Well, we're going to go back to Emma in just a moment to continue our discussion about poetry. But we're going to now go to Sammy. He's our local music enthusiast extraordinaire. He recommends a new album once per week, every single week on the My Generation podcast that you can go and listen to. And we're now going to tune in with what album Sammy recommends this week.
What's going on, guys? Hope you're doing well. Sammy Bacon here to give you a recommendation this week. It is the legendary debut album from Krautrock, ambient, psych rock masters, Neu, with their self-titled debut, Neu. Neu was founded by Michael Rotter and Klaus Dingus. Dingus? Dingus. It's not Dingus. It's Dinger. Forming members of Krautrock, but split to form up this own project that is Neu. Quickly give you some context around Krautrock, because that isn't, I don't know, an official name, but the type of experimental music these German bands were making was, I guess, in a sense, or trying to start a new beginning, try and create a more positive outlook on Germany, and they did it. Krautrock has produced some of the best bands of all time, some of the most interesting work, bands like Can, Cluster, Faust, Amon Düül, Kraftwerk, Tangerine Dream, and of course, Neu. Now, Neu is only 6 tracks long, but it clocks in about 40 minutes. And as I said, it has become one of the most influential bands of all time, albums of all time. Klaus Dinger, the drummer, sort of created and really pushed forward the Motorwick drum beat. The Motorwick drum beat is very basic, drum rhythm in 4/4, which barely has any interruptions, and it creates this very driving sort of rhythm and guidance to a song, and I guess that's where the term Motorwick comes from. One thing you hear in Neu is Michael Rotter's and Klaus Dinger's sort of obsession with water. I don't really know why. You can read into that yourself, but you kind of hear that obsession in the music as it flows and it's feeling very languid. And I think you can hear the influence of Neu in post-punk bands such as Squid or Joy Division. And yeah, Hallo Gallo, the opener, is a perfect example of the use of the Motorwick drum beat. And this album is just so encapsulating and so easy to listen to because it just flows so well and flows straight through you. It's a classic. Neu are a great band. Listen to this, then listen to Neu 2. Targo Margo by Can, Eggy Bang Massey by Can, Faust, Cluster. I think once you hear the debut album from Neu, you hear it everywhere, and I can't think of a drummer that hasn't been influenced even slightly by Neu. Anyway, a bit of a classic recommendation there, a bit of an oldie, but it's really worth listening. So yeah, Neu, listen to it. See you next time.
Thank you for that, Sammy. We'll tune in with Sammy again next week for the next album recommendation for you to listen to. We're now going to be moving into the music feature for this episode. Once again, we're featuring Mashville. We've featured them before with a couple of their songs. I really enjoyed their song Blue that we had on last time. Really great stuff. We're now going to be featuring 2 more songs from Another Place. We're going to be featuring first the song Smile, Remember, Mashville is a originally American band. They're now based in Kent, mainly in the Ashford, Maidstone, Folkestone area. And again, we're playing a song from another place. So here is Smile by Mashville.
You smiled at me when I first met you. Pools of mystery in dark brown eyes. You drew me into a world of promise and opened up my heart anew. You only had a fleeting moment to try to see if it was true. I'm glad you took that crazy chance on the winding road that heaven sent. I fell in love with a beautiful woman. I fell in love with a beautiful mind. I fell in love with a beautiful person. Smile, and I can't pretend that I make things easy. You took me in with all of my bags. I lived life wrong more times than right, but still you let me love you completely. I promise I'll love and protect you through the good times and the bad. When I met you, I fell in love. Smile because you knew I fell in love with a beautiful woman. I fell in love with a beautiful mind. I fell in love with a beautiful person. But most of all, it was your beautiful smile.
And that was Smile from the album Another Place by Mashville. Now we're going to be going back to Emma to continue our discussion about poetry. So I just wanted to sort of go into the sort of local impact side of it. If someone wants to get involved in this circle of poetry within the area of Kent, what can people do?
There is, first of all, if you're not sure where to go, there is a very good poetry page, well, writers page on Facebook called Canterbury Writers. You're more than welcome to try and find me as well on Facebook. I've had a few people message me recently about like places to go in Canterbury because they're students and they're not sure what to do. I'm 100% sure as well there is actually societies in Christchurch and Kent, universities, obviously creative arts as well. You guys, they all have societies that I'm aware of. But yeah, I'd probably like start with places. There's a few common events that are reoccurring. There's one called Your Bard, which is a monthly event reoccurring, which is done by Tommy in Bramley's. There is an event called Spark by a girl called Alice. I don't know her surname, I'm very sorry, Alice. I will probably remember immediately after this. But she does a Spark event. I believe that's every like month as well. There's one at the Foundry that reoccurs every now and then. I can't work out the time zones on it though. And there also is one that's a paid event to get into. It's called Lickety Spit, which is I believe it's every month or every 2 months, done by Henry Madison. I think that's how you say his surname. That is a reoccurring event at the Marlow Kit, which you have to pay
lovely
to get into. But it's really interesting because these are a nice variety. Some are showcase ones, so you just showcase art. They're quite nice and chill. Whereas some are slams, and a slam is quite scary to be at. The Lickety Spit one, I'd say, is a savage one because they hold up cards after you perform.
Wow, so they're judging you.
So you're being judged immediately after your performance, and it will be based on, a slam would necessarily be based on a theme. Then you either have a poem or try and perform a poem, have a poem within 3 minutes that is based on that theme. You were then how would you say judged? You're judged on your performance, delivery, and relevance to the theme. But Your Bard is also a one, but that's also it's a bit kinder because the judges all like meet up afterwards.
And then so you find out your scores later.
Yeah, and then you find out afterwards, and there'll be like a slam winner, there'll be a runner-up, and then normally the winner tends to be either the local feature in the next time, or they end up being the headliner. Which, this is why I'm actually kind of happy I've never won one, because I don't know if I'd want to actually headline. It's like 30 minutes of talking, and
wow.
Obviously that's what I'm doing right now, but I don't have 30 minutes of like content where I'm happy to perform it, because it's all kind of like, it'd all be all over the place, and it'd either like start really sad and get really happy, and everyone be like, oh wow, she's a bit all over the place. But yeah,
but that's how poetry is, isn't it?
Yep.
It's just up and down. Next poem will be completely different.
But yeah, those are some of the, these are, like I said, these are all Canterbury. There is still a scene in Margate, there's a scene in Faversham as well that's really well known. I don't know any others. I'm not obviously still new, but I've not been at a lot, and they've only been in Canterbury, so
that is still actually quite a lot. And for someone who's just getting in, maybe they didn't know any of those existed. So
yeah, well, actually, but I think by the time this comes out, there'll be so much more. I'll probably be a bit more on top of it as well. But people are more than welcome to message me. I've had like 3 people this new year message me.
And yeah, if you've got comments, leave them in the comments below, because then next time that Emma comes on the show, we can get her to address some of them if you've got any thoughts.
Yeah.
Because
like, it's where you get the celebrities and they're like, why is Emma Cussen like this? And I'm like, oh, for God's sake. Yeah.
The celebrities?
No, do you know, have you seen them where it's like they get celebrities to read tweets out about themselves?
Oh, yeah.
And some of them can be like really, really horrible. And I'm like, don't give me horrible comments. I'm quite a nice person.
Emma's got great poetry. She's a lovely person, and I'm sure all the comments will just be, I want to get involved in poetry. You've convinced me.
It'll be fun. I think more people don't necessarily have to perform it. You can just post about it.
And people can just come along to the events and watch if they want to start with.
Yeah, like, and you can, there's always like, I'm pretty sure there's like ones where you can just share poetry instead of like talking. I'm 100% sure there's a few of those about where you don't perform them. You just exchange them with someone and say like, what do you think of this?
Did you see also that Lem Cisse, the poet laureate, he did a poem about Canterbury?
No, I didn't. See, it's something I'm not very good at keeping on top of like actual poets. I'm probably the worst person for talking about that. I know, like, I didn't do English or anything at uni, but most of the people that I do poetry with have either got MAs in it or degrees in it, so they've like obviously kept on top of it through references.
Yeah, but you're able to sort of feed off that what they've got because they've done all the studying, and you just come in and you just absorb it all.
I mean, yeah, like I've got one friend in the poetry scene, and he's insane. Like, he's always coming out with new bits and bobs, and he's constantly like writing new stuff, and he's always so proud of himself, and I'm like, that's just so lovely to like have these people all in the same vibe, and you can see all my like everyone else like commenting and saying well done, man, like, and it's just quite nice. Like, everyone's like so supportive of one another.
Well, it's because it's super personal, isn't it? Well, both sort of music and poetry, people are just sort of pouring all their emotions out onto.
So
wait until you're famous.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Well, this podcast could get 30 views or 3 million. Who knows?
Could you imagine? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a world-renowned poet.
I could be published. Not for poetry, but I could be published.
Something science-related.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, Emma studies science stuff.
Working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I barely understand your degree. I mean, I just do film and radio, and then you come at me with all these big science words.
I mean, well, I am editing some stuff to be published, but that's obviously all low key at the moment. But maybe when this comes out, this might actually be like this will actually be like the promo to it.
Amazing. So go find Emma's science stuff.
Go find my unpublished stuff that you're all like,
that will be like, it's almost ready to go published.
It's almost ready. Yeah, we're editing at the moment.
Oh, amazing.
Like, seriously editing at the moment.
It's all go for you.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy. So I'm like, I'm just never going to leave uni, am I?
How long's your master's? Is it just 1 year?
Yeah, I finished it. I graduate next week.
Amazing. Well, by the time this comes out,
I haven't got my dream job yet.
she's getting there. She's going to be published. I don't know, where did these publications go?
So you just like send them to relevant journals. So first you've got to like edit your data, make sure it's like either readable or you can write about it. Makes sense, which is what I'm doing at the moment. At the moment I'm just doing stats. I'm analysing the stats. And then you kind of send that off to like journals that you're interested in having it published in. And then they discuss with you like who gets what share, who's first author, and it kind of goes from there. And then you've got to write to their standards so that they'll have a way you have to write it. I've got like one, I actually put one up recently on my it's called Energy Reading, and it's about Newton's first law of motion. And it's just about how you feel down, and the acceleration of something can feel like the decreasing of like the weight of it. Yeah, I'm really described that really badly. It's on my blog. Go read it yourself. But
infer it whatever way you want.
But yeah, that was like, sometimes I use theories and stuff, but I can't perform them. They're only like readable. It's hard to like perform.
They're sort of different worlds, aren't they? Your sort of poetry, photography, and
it's low-key gonna end up turning into a TED talk if I like do like a really sciencey poem. Like,
by the time this comes out, Emma's done like 4 TED talks already.
Can you imagine? I would love to do a TED talk. I just want one of those microphones that's actually attached to my face, so I don't have to like either hold the mic myself or have it in front of me. Yeah. This is quite nice. It's like kind of floating. I can move underneath it.
I like this new podcast setup. Yeah, this is only like the second episode I'm recording in this. So if you go back and listen to Emma's first episode, compare the sound quality. It'll be massively different.
You're gonna hear more.
You're gonna hear, there's more vocal range. There's more stuff happening.
My generation podcast went HD.
And that's the new promo we'll use at the start of every episode.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's the first thing people will hear now. Yeah.
My generation podcast. Welcome back to our channel.
We did an episode with Frazer Merrick. That is episode 36 of the podcast, about his audio drama, The Hidden Sounds of the Coastal Arcade. And it was done through that Screen South thing, which I've talked about before. So it's like a BBC commissioned radio piece. And what he did with sound was so creative in that he used a microphone that records the sound that light makes. So when light flickers,
that's so cool.
And he puts it into effectively music stream. So it's like a documentary experiential piece. So like the sound of coins coming out of an arcade machine goes into the sound that the light the machine's making, and then into someone talking about it. It's so cool.
That sounds insane. I can't wait to hear that one, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the actual the actual audio drama itself is on BBC Sound. So, I mean, this is just becoming a promo for Frazer now.
Oh, damn, I'm going to go find that after this then. That sounds cool.
Yeah,
like
and then you can hear him talk about it. It's episode 36 of the show. It'll already be out at this point.
Yeah, we'll have to just refer back to it. This our little like caption bit's massive at the moment.
Yeah, well, the description. It always is at the moment. And, you know, we always end up working out what the next podcast will be with that guest whilst I'm on with them. Like, I did one with Connor Jenkins, you know him.
Yeah, I've seen him about.
Yeah, we've done it about modelling. I think that one's already out as well. And an episode that hasn't come out yet, we planned it during that episode, but we're going to do Dungeons and Dragons.
That'd be so cool.
So because he's like a massive into Dungeons and Dragons.
That's so cool.
And so he's going to come on the show and teach me how to play it live on the show.
That's going to be amazing. You're going to film it. Oh my God, it's going to be like Critical Role podcast. Have you heard about Critical Role?
I haven't.
He'll probably bring that up. He may bring that up if... I don't know how
he should.
Well, he doesn't have to. Critical Role, I was introduced by one of the technicians actually in the science department, and it's them all playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it'll be like a 4-hour podcast, but they do voiceovers and stuff. So obviously when you get into characters, they have their characters.
Yeah.
And it'll just be about that. And it's like actually really, really cool to listen to, like especially if you're like just writing and stuff and you don't really want to pay attention to something. It's really cool in the background because something always funny happens. But yeah, they're on like episode like 200 and something crazy. But Critical Role is on Spotify.
Is that really like a weekly show as well?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then they have like the extended versions on YouTube where you can actually watch the people, and they're actually like famous people. Like sometimes there'll be gamers, YouTubers, people that have done voiceovers to animations and like cartoons.
Yeah,
and they'll come on. They have a character, and I think they keep replacing the people, and it'll be like literally a 4-hour podcast. It's insane, but it is really cool to listen to.
That's pretty cool. This one's usually only about 1 hour to 45 minutes, but we're gonna have a 20-minute speed game and then talk about his love of.
That's gonna be cool.
That's gonna be really fun. So that's just a punt for the next show.
That's gonna be fun.
That's come out in the future. At the point that you're hearing this, it's probably been recorded already, but it'll be coming out later.
That's cool. I'm excited for that one. That's gonna be a good one.
Connor, he's a great fun guest, and
is he Dungeon Master then?
Well, he'll have to be.
Oh yeah, because I was gonna say Dungeon Masters. Some of them could be like really sick.
Yeah. So it's gonna be one of the first episodes where the guest is probably gonna do like most of the legwork for the episodes.
Yeah, steering the podcast.
Because usually I prepare things for these shows in advance, as you can see by all the paperwork and like microphones and the live studio audience we have to.
Oh yeah, they just haven't like said anything yet
or clapped.
Like what the hell?
They're just smiling and waving.
Yeah, just awkwardly staring at all of us.
And this will be one where like I'm gonna have to sort of just be like, right, it's over to you for this one.
Yeah, that's gonna be really fun. That's gonna be an interesting take on, actually, a nice interesting take on this My Generation. So this has gone like crazy far. Like
you've seen it like change.
Literally like how much and everyone's getting involved, and it's become like an actual thing at uni, and it's like it's really cool.
Oh, well, you're far too kind. This is. I mean, it's been so great to watch it, but someone like you who was like on it right at the start, and now you're on it. However many episodes.
I saw that picture of us when we first ever did it. Can you imagine?
Yeah, well, with
like,
the Blue Yeti
the
mic.
Thing in the middle, we had to like lean into the table.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think your episode was the last one before we went over
that's so sad.
Because then we moved to the Zoom H4.
Rip.
Yeah. Then we got to the Zoom H6, which is now just powering the podcast.
That's cool.
And we've got these two fancy dancy Rode NT1As that are coming out onto little mic arms. So please let me know what you think of the sound quality, because we're trying new stuff on the show. We're expanding. Every Thursday from 6. Never miss it.
I like that.
We're going to be going back to Emma in a moment to continue this discussion, which was about poetry, but
we always go, of course.
Always. But have you got something to say about poetry? If so, please get in touch with the Facebook page at the My Generation Podcast. Leave your thoughts in the comments so we can bring them to Emma for the next round of the show. So just want to tease some of the next shows that we've got coming up on the podcast in the next couple of weeks that I've got planned. We've got Sammy Bacon, our local Kent enthusiast of music, who you've already heard on the show once. He's going to be doing another full episode, but going to be doing music across the generations. What changes have happened in music, why they've happened, sort of going over each generation's unique sort of styles and why they've been changing. Sammy's going to be back on for a lovely, great chat for that. Really excited. Daniel Feekins is going to be on talking about music. No, he's not. He's not at all. No, he's not. Dan Feekins is going to be on the show talking about films. We're talking about sort of the hidden gems of cinema, the films that often go under the radar. So if you want to learn about new, obscure movies to find and fall in love with, that'll be the episode for you. And of course, we'll have Daniel in. We're back on the show within the next couple of weeks as well. We always do. Every 13 episodes, we have that man on the show talking about whatever we ramble on about. Last time he was on would have been, do you know what? It would have been the 1 year anniversary of the show.
Oh, really? Oh, damn.
So this episode comes out in the new year.
The new year.
The new year of My Generation podcast.
Cute.
Which means we've made it to over a year.
Woo.
We did it. The audience, the crowd go wild.
Yeah.
Off to our side.
Just have it like something recorded on us.
Yeah, we should have had like insert crowd sound effects. I may have already in post just, you know.
I'll just edit it when you get to it.
Yeah, just the crowd go wild, I promise. And before we go back to Emma, just going to play another song from Mashville. So we had them on earlier in the show. They're our American original band based in Kent. We're playing songs from their album Another Place. You can find all their links in the description below. Please go and support the artists down there. And the title of this song is This Song. So this is This Song from Another Place by Mashville.
Tone of light in this place, all my letters can't portray. And it lasts just long enough to get all you need done in the day. With an hour to spare, my sonny hides behind the knuckle of the tree. I'm fit to burst with loving here for him. Hope that he's loving me. And I know that you must grow, but if only I could change the pace. I'm looking high, I'm looking low, for new expression in your face. Should I be cut down before my time? By then you'll understand where you belong. If you ever need reminding of my love, take a listen to this song.
This song, From Another Place by Mashville. Please go and support all their links in the description of this podcast episode. Emma, I'd just like to ask from you, as you are not paying attention, just going to quickly catch you off guard there.
Sorry.
Well, to be fair,
Don't ask me.
when we did the episode with Connor, he spilt like his coffee whilst we were recording. And I think it was about at this point of the episode as well, so just trying to catch you off guard. What do you think you've learned by talking about poetry on today's episode of the show?
That I don't know much about. I'm joking. No, that I'm probably a bit of I am an amateur. I already kind of knew that, but now I'm realizing I'm a bit more of an amateur. I don't know that many acclaimed poets. I'm thinking now there's a lot of people that probably would have been better to talk to during this podcast.
But look where we are.
But look where we are. I know a few people you probably could have spoken to, and we could have all just spoken, and then I would just sat there like smiling instead.
We'll have to do more episodes about poetry. It's a big subject.
It is a big subject. It seems like a lot of people love and enjoy it. No, I've actually realised that I am very passionate about this, actually.
This is something you're going to carry on.
Yeah, I keep saying that I'm not going to carry on performing, and then I'll perform, and then I'm like, oh.
I'm back here again.
Yeah, I'm back here again. Yeah, because in this time of this being recorded on Saturday, I was meant to perform. It got cancelled. I was meant to perform yesterday, and issues came up, so I couldn't get to the event. I'm meant to be performing on Thursday. Which I should be actually doing, because I'll be in Canterbury for it, so there's no excuse. But yeah, I keep saying that I'll stop being public about it, and then I do carry on and actually realise people really enjoy it, and then I realise I enjoy it, and I'm like, actually this is a hobby.
Yeah. It's a fun hobby.
Yeah,
Is it something you could see a career out of, or is this just something you want to keep as?
Oh yeah, this wouldn't be a career for me. I've got one or two friends that joke and say I should publish, which I have a really rubbish
Emma just swore again.
I have a really rubbish art, like drawing book I have at home, that sketchbook, and that I've actually started to write some of my poems around it. And I keep saying that I'll like publish that, but I'm not like serious about it in the sense that my other friends should be, if you know what I mean. Like there's some of my friends that have actually gone through the efforts to do an MA in it, are actually seriously in debt, because that's what uni does for you. And but they've taken the hobby and they're really trying to do something with it, which I think is great. It's nice to see that they're getting like published in Canterbury Writers and Thanet Writers block and stuff like that. It's quite nice. It's just nice. No, I wouldn't make a career out of this. Science is what I want to make a career out of. But I would love to, my perfect balance would be that I could not give this up when I'm actually like in a serious job that I'm qualified for, because that would be horrible. I would hate to think that I could stop this balance that I have now, where I can write comfortably because I'm travelling on public transport. Obviously, if I drove, I think that would be reduced.
That's what I like about public transport. I mean, my commute to the radio station is 2 hours there, 2 hours back. So
but you get stuff done.
I get a lot of stuff done on the train.
You get stuff done because you have nothing better to do. You can watch Netflix in that time. Like
podcast not sponsored by Netflix.
Yeah.
Hello.
Smash the
mic.
mic.
Just goes flying into the microphone. We're gonna have to get new kit. You'll just
yeah, I
destroy
know.
all the kit.
It's just I'm the worst. No, yeah, like you can do little things, and there'll always be something. Like so I'll see like another person on the train or the bus, and I'll be like, what an annoying person. And then they'll just remind me of someone else, and I'm like, I'm going to write about that.
Well, the experiences that become poems. There's probably no podcast poem though, is there?
No, I probably won't write about this. I'm joking. No, there's no. No. Radio
is a completely different animal.
Yeah, because I was asked by a friend who does radio, and he said I should come on and perform, and I was like, hell to the no. I was like, I don't know how many people are listening in, and he was like, oh, I can tell you. I was like, I really don't want you to tell me.
What's the difference for you then?
I don't know, because I can't see anyone.
Okay.
And it'd just be me and him, and I'd be sitting there just staring at him, and I'd be like, I'm basically performing too, although there's probably like 1,000 people listening to this. And like, to me, that's just tiniest bit uncomfortable, like not knowing the unknown. It obviously scares everyone, the unknown does.
It's interesting what mediums people feel comfortable performing in, because this is like my bread and butter. I love being here doing this stuff.
Yeah, because you're kind of like in your little bubble.
Yeah, but I also like performing in front of people, but some people get nervous doing other things. Like, I'm not that great on phone calls, I find. Like, emails, I'm great. Podcast talking like this, I'm great. But then, like, you put me just like a phone to the ear.
So that time you called me and you were like, hello, you were at work and you were like, hello, Emma. And I was like...
Yeah, I mean, I probably slipped into my sort of...
Yeah, you were
voice.
like, you had like when you're on your phone, when you're on the phone, you have like a really like radio sort of voice, like a presenter's voice. So it kind of freaked me out. I was like, I'm not live on the radio.
He's not talking like a friend. He's talking like a podcast host.
Yeah.
Oh no.
God, gotta be serious.
Yeah. I mean, the podcasts are always quite casual. These ones, it's quite nice.
Yeah.
I mean, we've sort of rambled about poetry, but
it's nice to ramble though.
Yeah. Love a good ramble. That's all the poetry is as well. Ramble out all the things you need to say.
It's just cathartic noise. Like, it's just you, whatever you feel, just say it.
And what would you say to anyone who's sort of a little bit nervous about wanting to sign up and join these poetry events? What would you say to someone who's on the edge? You may have almost convinced them. What's the final thing?
One thing, maybe you could do an alias. You don't have to sign up as you personally. But if you're worried, trying to find someone on the event to maybe like message and say you don't really want to be openly signing up. You just want to do it to see if you want to be like a background person, because a lot of these events you don't have to perform at. You can just be a person in the crowd, and you can be at the back of the crowd. You can make yourself known, but normally someone will come up to you, like just talk to you. Just be prepared for like, it's a nice atmosphere. But I'd say if you're a bit like worried about it, just find someone to message that looks nice, like, oh, their face looks nice. Or if someone looks like they're in control of the event, message them and just say, I'm a bit nervous, because I've had situations, I've actually had like a medical issue during one of my performances, and the support I got was like the nicest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And that was very embarrassing for me, and it was like, they were really lovely about it. So
everyone came together. You said it's such a nice close group. Everyone just is there to support each other.
Yeah, and everyone's understanding. I'm probably the worst person for attendance, but everyone's actually a bit understanding about that. Like, I think they just kind of get it. That if I say I'm going to go to something, there's probably like a 40% chance that I'm not going to go.
I mean, today's podcast was 50-50.
I mean, yeah, it was based on the fact when I was finishing, and I was like, and then they were like, oh yeah, you finished now, and it was 1, and I was like, I swear I was rated till 2, but thanks. So I was like, okay, bye.
I mean, I wasn't sure if you'd show up, and you showed up early. Emma showed up early for the first time.
Yeah, I'm
We're
either
so proud.
on time or 10 minutes late. Fashionably late though.
That's why I was so surprised. That's why, like, I was in here getting ready for the show, and I'm like, she's already here. What's going on?
So yeah, I was going to stand outside for a bit and thought,
you're already here. Let's just go and record.
Yeah, might as well.
And that was today's episode of the show. Well, thank you for coming on, Emma.
You're welcome. I would love to come again.
Yeah, it would be lovely to have you back on. Well, we're going to have you back on talking about travel.
Yeah.
That's happening.
Yep, we can do that.
And so if you've got comments, leave them below, because we'll get them to Emma. So when we record that episode, Emma can talk more about, if there's poetry questions before we get into the travel side of it, because you've been everywhere.
Yeah, I've been a few places, yeah.
Can you give the people listening just a tease of just a couple of the places you're going to be talking about on that episode?
I've been to India to study. I've been to New York, and I've been to Tokyo, and hopefully by then I've probably been to somewhere else, which I'm not going to tease, but Prince was born there.
And that's just, well, now you're going to have to listen to that episode to find out. So tune in next time with Emma on the show to hear all of that and more, all the places she's travelled. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you to Emma for coming on.
You're welcome.
And we'll tune in with you all next week for the brand new episode of the My Generation podcast, which comes out every single Thursday. Please subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss a new episode. And we'll tune in with you next week for that next episode of the My Generation podcast.